Hi there, it's Kerry here, and today I'm just going to show you how to import some sketches into Illustrator or your favourite graphics program, and then create stencils which you can import into Silhouette, Portrait, and create stencils to make some foil cards. So here I'm in Illustrator and I'm setting out the frames for my stencils. And now I'm importing some sketches that I've done on rough paper. Resized them, and I'm going to trace around them with a pencil tool. Just locking that layer. So using the pencil tool with no outline and just a fill. Just tracing around my holly leaf shapes. They're very simple shapes for this stencil. And I'm giving the berries a little white outline so that you'll see the shape once it becomes a stencil. So you always need to have connecting plastic so that the whole shape doesn't just fall out. And here I've just selected the shapes that I draw and dragged them across to the symbols window on the right. So that's stored as a symbol now, and any edits that I make to the symbol will be applied to any of the instances of it on the page, so you don't need to change every single shape that you've pulled out onto the page. It's quite a useful tool when you're making a repeating pattern, which is what I'm going to be doing here. Just dragging that one across the symbols palette, calling it Ivy. Okay, so now I'm going to draw a little box, and this box is it's going to be 50 by 50 millimeters, and it has no outline and no fill, and it's really important because this will contain our pattern. So I'm just going to copy it and paste it in place with a colour so that I can see the space that I'm going to be filling up. I've locked the layer with the see-through square on it. So now I'm just placing my Ivy symbol at the corner, and I'm going to use the move tool to copy it into different places. So I'm just moving it by the width of the box. I decided I wanted to resize it a little bit first. So you can see it's copied across. So now I'm dragging my holly leaves and just keeping them within the boundaries of the box this time. So anything that crosses the boundary of the box, it needs to be repeated basically on the opposite boundary to make it a seamless pattern. So you can see you can play with the size of the different instances of the holly without affecting the other ones, but that's because we're not editing the actual symbol at the moment. So I've unlocked the layer with the see-through box in it, and I'm going to select everything now and drag it across to the swatches panel, sorry. So now I'm going to draw a box to house the stencil. So I'm going to make it a square in the top of the shape. And this stencil is to fill a card that's 150 by 100 millimeters. And then I just click on the swatch and it fills up the shape for me. So now I'm going to draw some text. Adobe Illustrator's measuring tools are quite handy for getting everything lined up. And I'm going to select the stencil font because that means that it'll preserve the insides of letters and things like that within the plastic, so you'll get a clear letter shape in the stencil. I'm just going to make the seasons word a little bit bigger so that it fills the space. And that's the first stencil done. So now I'm going to trace the mother and child sketch that I've imported on another layer. I like to keep everything separate on my layers so that I can control the illustration easily. What I'm not doing here is naming the layers, which is what I normally do. So I'm just chasing around the different parts of the sketch and making sure that I leave blank spaces in between, so that basically the plastic will remain there when the silhouette cuts the stencil out. So you can see the blank lines in between all the black shapes, and that's where the plastic will be to keep the shape together. Okay, so here I've opened a new file in Silhouette and turned it into landscape layout, and I'm importing to library the JPEG that I saved in Illustrator, and then I drag it across onto the mat and resize it to fill the whole space. So as I said, I'd forgotten to take the frames off in Illustrator. What I would normally do is take this frames off in Illustrator and then draw them in Silhouette as I'm doing here, because then you get just one cut line for the frame rather than two. So now I'm going to trace the drawing area with a trace tool and turning high pass filter off so that you get the fills. So all the yellow spaces will be cut out. And then I'm going into cut settings, choosing advanced and selecting stencil material, but I'm turning up the blade to about 7, selecting double cut and then sending it to the Silhouette, and here are the stencils that it cut out for me. So I'm just taping down some cardstock onto the table and placing the stencils on top, which I'd already used for some other cards, which is why they've got medium on them. I'm using heavy gloss gel medium and a palette knife, so that what you'll get is quite a 3D stencil. Just carefully peeling those off, and you can see the stencil shape on the card. So these need to be let to dry, and I find that I put them on top of the heater and they dry quite quickly. So here's some Nouveau glitter, it's red, just putting that over the top of the wet medium, tapping that off, and you can see, and here it is dry, you can see it goes clear, you can just about see it on the video, and then I'm cutting some foil to cover the shape and putting it with the side that you want to see facing up. So that's the green side facing up on this green foil. Okay, and I'm just creating some frames to go behind my glitter stenciled cards. I'm using double-sided tape rather than cutting a piece of card and taking up the whole space. So that's the red glitter, and I'm just going to press through a piece of paper to push this glitter into the tape, and I'm just taping down the card on top of it. Now I had trouble with the second card because it had warped slightly while it was drying, so it was a bit reluctant to stick down, which I fixed in the end with some medium. I'm just putting on the blue Nouveau glitter. I'm pressing it into the tape to keep it in place. So yeah, it was a bit warped and it was refusing to stick down. So here's the foil after it's been through the laminator on a cold setting, except that I put it through slightly warm, so there's a bit of foil sticking where the stencil isn't on these. Some of them anyway. This one in particular, the laminator had been a bit too hot. So you can see how lovely and shiny they are. So I chose the ones that I liked, and I'm sticking them onto some cardstock that has got gold foil taped on the front. It's gold cardstock, it is, not gold foil. And you can see how sparkly they are. So this process of making the stencils with Silhouette, it means that once you've got your design, you can make any number of cards quickly and easily.